Welcome back to another Chatting with Wisdom. I am Geegado Megwan, spirit name, which means talking feather woman. I'm also known as Rollie Allaire. I empower women to stand on their truth so that they feel fulfilled and can achieve all their desires. This unscripted weekly interview series is to support successful women who feel misunderstood and disempowered in personal relationships and stand in their truth so that they can communicate with confidence. Join me for a Stand in Your Truth call where you'll explore what's blocking you from communicating with confidence in your personal relationship. This week, I'd like to introduce Deb Porter. And this week, we're going to be chatting about wisdom in listening. Deb is on a mission to Mr. Rogers the world through teaching and practicing confidential, compassionate listening. To that end, she created HOLD, which stands for Hearing Out of Life Drama. Hearing out life drama. HOLD is a confidential listening service, different from therapy, but outside the common circle of family, friends, and coworkers. She makes sure that her team of trained listeners listens to your load. So welcome. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Appreciate you having me today.
So this is incredible. So listening is something that we don't do enough of. So we hear, but we don't listen, right? So and there's a huge distinction between the two of them, isn't there?
There really is. As children, we're told that we need to listen, but when I've asked people, were you ever taught how to listen? I usually just get people, they get this blank look in their eyes and then stare off into space and they're like, no, I really wasn't ever taught.
Yep. Well, and it's like, okay, look at me, right? So, okay, you're looking at me. So does that mean that my eyes are listening? And they actually kind of are, because we're listening to body language, we're paying attention to what it is that's going on. And so, but when you're not taught specifically that this is what you need to be doing and chatting, and as I'm talking, I can see that you're actually listening and you're engaged in what it is that I have to say, right?
Absolutely. So I teach the core of listening to maybe give your listeners a little bit of help if they struggle with that. Yep. So the core stands for calm. The C is for calm and centered. If we're not calm and centered, we're not really able to hear. We're all out of ourselves, and we're not able to dial into the other person. The O stands for outcome. What outcome are you really hoping for from the conversation? The R is the relate, and that's really what you're talking about with the eye contact and the body language, reading all that, making sure that Yep. You're staying relating and you're not looking at your phone, those types of things. And then the E is for empathy. So.
And those are really important factors. And I like how you actually set them up with that acronym of CORE, because that's the core portion of being able to listen. So how did you come into doing this? So tell me a little bit more.
So my background is actually as a United Methodist pastor. I was trained in the United Methodist Church in my early 20s. I'm with a specialization in pastoral care and counseling, and I really love to simply listen to people. It's my superpower. I left the church when my daughter was born. The church was blowing up with the LGBTQ plus issues. And I had a family member who came out to me at that time, and I could not stay aligned with the church, so I left. And then my kids, and then my husband got sick, extremely sick. And I was a caregiver to him for 8 years in a very intense way. And through that time, over and over again, there was so often my family, friends, they really wanted to listen, but they didn't know how to stay in their center that we just talked about. They would hear my emotion that was so intense, it was so difficult, and they wanted to help me. But that often meant that they were offering solutions or advice. And what I needed was someone to simply listen. Yeah. And so that was the beginnings of HOLD were already starting then.
Well, and that is really, I love how you actually brought that together, because a lot of times that's something that we need is just to simply be heard. We don't necessarily need somebody to come up with solutions. There might be a solution for us, and within our and I love this because we have one particular lady who is in our Soulful Life Hacks and program, and so when she comes in, that's one of the things that some days she comes in and says, okay, I just need to be heard. I don't need anybody to give me any advice. I don't want to hear any advice. I don't care what it is that anything. I don't care about solutions today. I just need to be able to talk this through so that I can process whatever it is that's going on. And I know that I'm somebody who processes my emotions through talk.
Yes. And so you can see what your person in your group just did. She focused on the outcome. The outcome that I need from this conversation is to simply be heard. Yep. And so she set it up beautifully for the group and made it easy for them. But sometimes it doesn't always happen that easily. Sometimes you have somebody that's so upset with what's been going on that they'll start out with, and it'll the word vomit will come. Right. And then they'll say, and I don't know what to do. And so often, if I can teach one thing in my life, this is like the one thing I want to teach. I want to teach people that when that happens, just take a beat and say, and ask the question, did you want to problem solve, or did you just need to say that and be heard?
Yeah. And that just gives them that permission.
Exactly.
Right? Because sometimes that's all that we need is just that permission. And so, so what is it that you do with your clients? So obviously you teach them these core statements. So what is it that you do with your clients specifically? Because the topic today is wisdom and listening. And so you've taught us some wisdom already by giving us those little tidbits. But so what is it that you do, or how do you work with your clients so that they can, is it so that they can become better listeners, or what is it that you do?
I'm hoping to eventually offer some courses. Right now, our education is mostly on the B2B side. We offer some business solutions for those business owners that are trying to minimize the turnover in their organization and or just simply have a better culture. So through teaching listening, that can happen. So that's where most of our teaching is right now. For the B2C, for the consumer, the normal consumer, somebody who needs to listen, they can come to our website right now and book a time. We offer appointments in 15, 30, or 45 minutes, and they can book either over phone, chat, or Zoom, whatever they're most comfortable with.
Nice. And so that particular service is simply for them to be able to be heard. Is that what the purpose is?
That's it. We listen. So I train my listeners. I teach and train my listeners to do exactly what I do, which is, somebody books a time and we simply invite, this is a confidential space. You can say whatever it is that you need to say without judgment right here, right now. And I'm going to listen actively. I'm going to actively listen, but I'm going to hear you. So,
yes. Yeah. And I think that that's something that's really important to be able to do. And like I said, I'm the vocal problem solver, like how it is that an emotional connection. And so my strategy is, if there's like lots going on and I don't have that outlet that I can actually have a conversation, or the things that may be going through my mind are not things that I should probably be telling anybody in the world, then I jump in my car and I go for a ride and I talk. And so now it's not so bad because people have phones in their cars and like all that kind of thing. But before that became like the hands-free thing became normal, it would be like you would be seeing me driving down and I'd be talking to myself. Like now people just think that I'm talking on my phone. So now I don't look like this weirdo driving down the street. But but that was how I would actually process a lot of my feelings or emotions when there were certain things that I probably should not tell the person that I was feeling, or not in the way that I was feeling at that particular moment.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to have a really productive conversation, you want to make sure that you can be in that calm state, right? And if you're not there yet, then whatever you can do to get yourself to that state is beautiful. And I love that you found a way that works for you.
Absolutely. And so what are some of so now you talked about the B2B, so the business to business, for people that don't know what B2B means. Mm-hmm. And so like, how do you work with businesses to be able to help them understand? Because I love that you actually have it so that they can actually hear what their employees or staff are needing.
So what we do is we've got two different plans. We've got a basic access and an all access. And what we've got are our listening hours that we offer to their employees. So they purchase the access by employee. And so for the basic access, it's 3 listening appointments plus our educational materials. And we have 14 different modules written. And so the basic access, they get 5 of those. And for the all access, it includes more managerial materials and some other great stuff. And they get 6 listening appointments per year. The reason for that, Rollie, is that we want to make really sure that those people that need therapy get to therapy. So what I know is that typically in a therapeutic relationship, that a therapeutic alliance forms around that 6th time. And so therefore, we want to make really, really sure that we're not helping people beyond that 6th time, because at that point, they probably really do need some extra help beyond what we're offering. We're listening, but we're not life coaches. We're not problem solvers exactly. I mean, if somebody asks us for advice, if they want to talk about solutions to problems, yes, we'll give that. But that's not part of what we do usually, unless people ask us specifically. What we do is we listen. And so that's very different than therapy. It's very different from somebody who has a deeper trauma that they need to process. It's different from somebody who's really trying to make a life change and might need something deeper.
So then how does it help them when you are going through that process of listening? So, so without going through like therapy or anything else, like how would you know the difference? So if somebody came to you, for example, and in the first 2 sessions, your listeners were saying, hey, I think that they need something a little more than what we can offer them. So is that something that is introduced at that point, or how do you determine that?
Sure. So we really try to listen for like key aspects of things that might indicate more need, deeper need. And so when my listeners catch those triggers, I've trained them to be sure not to offer therapy right away. We're not, because we don't give advice. I mean, if we just said, we think you need therapy, that's doing exactly what we say we're not going to do, right?
Yeah.
But what we will do is simply ask, would you be open to our thoughts or suggestions? And at that point, if we get a yes, if we hear that, then we will absolutely let them know these are some resources where you can tap in. We have our resources page. Here's some, if they let us know our geographical area, I've been making connections as I've been building the business so that I can make those referrals.
Nice. And so with the, so like, one of the things that you were talking about as well, so the B2B, is that so when they have those conversations or when they're joining you or when because obviously it's a confidential service, that's one of the things that you shared already in your bio.
Yes.
But like, so do you report back to the businesses as to like, not the details of whatever it is that it's going on, but just like, how does that work?
No, we don't. And in fact, this is one of the main tenets in order for this to really work, and why EAPs don't work, is that employees don't trust that it won't get back to the business. And so they will never know who booked with us. They will never know directly. Once the employee has access into the portal, they can book with us directly, typically within an hour. So also, which is a great way to get past the barrier that's through so many EAPs. You have to go here, and then you have to go here, and there's so many hoops, right, to access the support. With us, it's not like that at all. It's you're in, here you go, here's the link, go ahead and book. It's all set up for you and fast. And you would be surprised in just 15 minutes how much better you can feel when you're really heard. It's incredible.
Really
people talk about how amazing they feel, and so businesses, I think, will definitely be able to notice as employee after employee goes, oh my gosh, I feel so much better, right? Yeah.
So then how do the businesses actually get involved? So if they wanted to be able to set this up for their teams, how would they go about doing this? Like how is that process set up?
So I really recommend at the moment that they go to our website, and there's on our business solutions page, there's a contact, and I'm happy to sit down and walk them through what the process looks like.
Okay, so I'm going to share that for anybody who is on on YouTube or on Facebook. I'm going to share the link right now into the comment. So, but not inside my Facebook group or LinkedIn because of the mechanics of things. It doesn't allow us to do that. But on YouTube and on my Facebook page, in the comments section, it's added. And so, but wherever it is that you're listening to this, especially for those who are listening to this through the podcast, is that wherever it is that you're listening, there is contact information for Deb that has her website included as well. I just know that I appreciate having like at my fingertips that link that I can actually click and go. So for those of you who are actually on Facebook or YouTube, that being able to just go and click and access it really helps that part. So, but for those of you who are on the podcast or on LinkedIn or inside my Facebook group, just simply go to the description of wherever it is that you are catching this this chat, and you'll have access to that. So,
thank you.
Is there anything else, Deb, that you wanted people to understand or wanted people to know?
If people are interested in our Angry Teen resource, we have a great free resource available. It's as simple as providing us your email address, and we'll send you that resource for free. I believe it's really helpful. It incorporates that core that I talked about and how to actually implement it with your team. So it walks through step by step. It's 18 pages of really good stuff, I think.
Well, and I think that was something, because we kind of chatted about that just before coming on, about the importance of being able to connect with our teen and having those conversations. So like, what do you think is so yes, listening, but like in terms of like them knowing that you're listening, and that's probably, you probably have some tips inside the form, but what are some of the things that they can be doing in terms of being able to hear what it is that their teen is saying?
So I think one of the most important things is being able to reflect back in not in the same words, but in similar words, so that they know that you get what they're saying. So we want to hold that mirror up to them so that they know, mom, dad, or sister, whoever it is, they're really understanding me. Yeah.
Because teens really do feel misunderstood, right?
Yes.
So they really do struggle with being heard, being understood, and feeling like they're completely isolated. And so, yes, we were all teens as we were growing up, or some of us have had teens. But it's that feeling of like, hey, they don't get me. They don't understand. They're not coming from that same place that I was at. And I know that my youngest used to say to me all the time, yeah, well, if I was born in the 1930s, then maybe you would understand. It's like, first of all, I wasn't born that late, but right. But that is how we tend to respond, right? So when, and that goes for even with our relationships with others as well, is that we then put our back up, like, right? So it's like immediately needing to defend. It's like, hey, well, I'm not that old, right? So like, and wasn't the point. The point is I'm not being understood. You're not hearing what it is that I'm saying. And those are the things that are like really important for us to be able to tap into. So I like that point of reflecting back. So what would be an example of that? So how would you explain, like what example would you be able to use for that?
So in the example that you just gave, we're in the 1930s. My son says, okay, boomer, to me a lot lately. I'm Gen X. So, but it's a matter of saying, okay, I hear that your perspective is different because you think the age discrepancy. So tell me exactly what it is that you think I'm not getting clear on. And then really listen to the response and then say that back in some different words. Yeah.
Because it really is that key, right? So, and it's about being able to take that emotion out of it. And so again, before we came on, we were talking about like, yeah, I was the hated teen mom at one point. But like the teen friends were like, hey, your mom's like really cool. But my kids were like, yeah, no, she's not. She's not. Definitely. You should leave. Right?
My daughter went to college. She was like, Mom, I appreciate you so much more now. I'm sorry I didn't get it before. Which, that's beautiful. I'm so grateful that we have that kind of relationship now, and that's a real gift to me. But I do want to help those who are still in the struggle, because I remember what that's like. I know how hard it is. And if you just need somebody to hear that and sit with you with that, I'm more than happy to do that.
And again, I love what it is that you said. Hear you and sit with you, right? So sometimes that's all that we need. And so one of the things that you were talking about is when going through that pre-grief state with your husband being ill, and needing somebody to just literally just sit with you, right? So like just having somebody not tell me anything else, not distract me with what it is that's going on in their life, just simply letting me sit. And sometimes that listening means being silent.
Yes. Yes, it does. Bingo. We have blog posts about that because we hope people will begin to understand that too. That silence is so important. Processing happens in silence. That's when people start to figure out, okay, where do I go next? What do I? So that silence is not something that you necessarily need to fill. It's something it's okay to let it be.
But people feel so uncomfortable, right? So what are some tips for if you're listening and you're in that uncomfortable state of silence, then what are some tips for the person who is sitting in silence with the person who they're meant to listen to?
For example, if a person's crying, and you definitely don't want to interrupt that if they're having a very emotional moment, just breathe yourself. Focus on yourself so that you can stay centered and calm there. And in doing that, you'll be able to wait for them to get through their process. Because if you talk to them, you're going to interrupt their process. You're going to disrupt the emotions, and that's not the goal. We want them to get all the way to the end because our bodies naturally do that. Our bodies know when we've had enough. We can just trust that even if it's like intense or a lot, or they'll eventually find their rhythm and it will stop. Learning to trust that for me was so important. That was such a life learning. Yeah.
And if you're sitting with somebody in person, and I know that I have clients who have attended circles with me or retreats with me, and one of the things that I say at the very beginning is, don't even pass them Kleenex. They know where the Kleenex is. They'll figure it out. And if they don't know where the Kleenex is, when they're done, they will look for a Kleenex, or they'll use their sleeve. Like if they absolutely need to, they'll use their sleeve. Right?
And it can be washed. What's the big deal? It can be, we don't have to make a big deal out of it, but don't disrupt their process. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. How marvelous that people have been able to be in the circle of your world and experience that. That's so beautiful.
Well, and like I said, I've had that, and that's what the reason why I was asking is like, what do they do when they're in silent? And I like that. Center yourself and be grounded, because that is one of the things is that I've often had to, like, somebody would be sobbing in a circle, and I'd have to say like, stop, like to the other person who's coming forward. It's like, just leave them. Like, don't come and hug them. Don't try and hand them Kleenex. Don't. And it's like, stop. And then you've got the people who are like, so compassionate and so caring, and they just want to be able to help, and they just want to make the pain go away. And it's like, stop, like, don't, right?
Yeah, and that really is because they've lost their own center. Like if you can stay in your own center with that, it's really okay. It really, whatever anyone else is feeling, you can stay with that and just be present to it without needing to do anything about it. Even though, and I'm not saying don't be compassionate. I'm not saying don't offer love. I'm just saying let the people lead you, right? Follow what they need. So one of the things that I teach my listeners as they come on board with me is always remember to start from where they are. Start from where they are. It's not about you. You're starting from where they are. And so that's what you want to do always, every time, 100%.
And it really does make a difference. And so like your listeners are over the phone or on Zoom or in different means that they're actually connecting. But for people who are in person, sometimes they do need that hug, but you're going to be able to know because they're going to be leaning forward, or there's going to be something. And again, it's that listening to the body language, listening to what it is that's going on. And like, if I'm sobbing, I don't want you to come and hug me. I want to be able to just be in my own space. Whereas my girlfriend is that when she's sobbing, she wants us to be in that space. And so, but we wait to see how she's like, or I wait, I should say, not we, because it's generally just her and I, but in that moment, but it's like you wait for that moment of like knowing that it's like, hey, there's that invitation of like needing to be able to come in, and if you're not certain, being able to ask the question, right?
Exactly.
So that's, again, not if they're in the middle of like that full on sob and or wailing or whatever it is that they're having in terms of emotion, waiting until they catch their breath,
or if they're exactly, or if they're angry, right? Whatever large thing it is, just being able to be present with it until They're ready. Absolutely. 100%.
Right. And I actually never even thought about that, the angry, yet that's the resource that we just shared was about the angry. But you're right. Again, it's that other emotion, right? So that angry emotion, usually when you have anger, it's usually a hidden emotion to something else. They're usually feeling something else, but it's that outward anger emotion that's coming out forth first and foremost. Or is the like recruiting, turning inward and crying, or there's other people who will actually start with their anger and it turns into tears, right?
Right, because they've been able to get to the layers below the anger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
just really, really important. So do you have any other tips or anything else that you think that the listeners would be that would be helpful for them to know, or based on the conversations that we've had so far, or even something completely different?
Oh, I just sincerely hope that if you're struggling to really listen to somebody, that you'll know that it's okay to hit the pause button. I think sometimes when we get into conversations, we feel like we have to do it all right now, and we don't. If we're not in that space of calm, it's okay to say, listen, I need some time. Or if you started into a conversation, you were calm at the beginning, but then they said something, and suddenly you're not calm anymore. Just it's all right. It doesn't all have to be done right this minute. It's okay to take a break and come back. And I think when we all do that with each other in the world, life gets better.
And it really does. And so, thank you so much, Deb, for sharing and sharing your wisdom. And I love the way that you have this program set up so that people can connect. So obviously, this is a global podcast, so people from around the world have access to hearing this. So, do you have clients from around the world, or are you only stationed in one particular place?
We've had people on the website from all over the world. I have not yet had anyone book from outside the United States, but I've had people look. So just had somebody on from Ireland the other day. I noticed just you get the statistics right from the
Yep.
From your website, and so I was looking and yeah. So we have a global influence, and I believe that we will stretch beyond the United States. I eventually my big dream. We're focusing on the United States right now, but my big dream is to literally have listeners on every continent. So.
That would be amazing. And I love the statistics. When I can find them, I find them by accident. I never find, like, that's not my thing. But it's like, oh, look at that. Oh, this is so cool.
yeah, I can geek out with you along that, sure.
So I leave that to my VA to say, okay, so what do I need to know about the information? Because I can never find it. When I find it, it's by accident. But yeah, so like it really is cool that you can actually offer this globally. So like if there is somebody in Ireland that is listening, or somebody in Australia that is listening, then being able to have that opportunity to be able to, or in Canada, because here I am in Canada, but having a different country, being able to have this worldwide where they have that connection. And so your program, is it based on like your B2B program? So is that based on number of employees, or is it like a specific package, or how does that work?
It's a price per employee. So they choose their package, the basic access or the all access, and then the cost is based on how many employees. So for example, if a business decided, well, for my management team, my C-suite, whatever, we're going to do this number, they could do that, and then do some other access for the rest of their employees. Just depends on what they want to do, how far they want to go. The all access pass does include Zoom and listening skills with me, and I make myself available to the teams to do some teaching in a group, small groups. I limit it to 8.
Okay.
And yeah.
And that would be like a management team?
It could be, yeah. It could be. It doesn't have to be. If they have employees that are interested in coming on, then as long as they're part of the all access plan, somebody wants to come and say, look, I'm having an issue at home and struggling to listen to my partner, my kid, my teen. Absolutely, we'll dive in and help.
And I like one of the things that you pointed out is that I'm having trouble listening, right? So a lot of times we're like, okay, well, the other person's not listening to me, and we can't change the other person. So it's that really importance of like, I am not listening, and or I'm having that difficulty, or I'm doing that. So I like how you frame that so that people can understand that it's not about my spouse isn't listening to me, or that my teen isn't listening to me. It's like, I'm not listening. So what is it that I need to do so that I can shift that balance? And when we learn to listen more effectively and
yes, you get it. Ah, yes. I'm so excited. I've got goosebumps. I love it when people get it.
Right. And that's yeah. And that's the key. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a little delay. Go ahead.
That's okay. The only person we can change is ourselves. That's so very true. And it's always a delight for me when somebody understands that.
Yeah, and it's really important for us to be able to do. So any final words before we head out?
Oh, thank you so much for this conversation. It was lovely. It's a delight to meet you at last. I listened to some of your other stuff. I'm like you. I also don't like my food to touch. And so I was like, I relate to this person so well on so many levels. We're going to have a great conversation.
But yet during COVID, it was like, okay, I'm really missing hugs. I'm really missing those hugs. But typically that's not me. Like, so typically that's not, I'm like, I just want my space. Give me my space. When I need to have that physical touch, then I will invite you into my space. But otherwise, just give me my space. But I noticed the lack of it specifically with COVID, right? So that was where it really made a huge impact into of like, oh, I guess I do like touch. Right? Yeah. So, but yeah, so thank you so much for joining. And I am looking forward to learning more about what it is that you do. And I have somebody that I am definitely going to send out this resource to, and let her know that this may be something that might be helpful for her. So thank you everybody for listening, and we will be back next week with another Chatting with Wisdom. And very interesting for next week is that we have, it's also our women's conference planning. And so next Wednesday will be our final interview with our conference women, are like our speakers for our conference, but she's also coming back for our live interview series as well. So just ironically, she chose both appointments to be able to connect. So we'll talk with her in the morning, and then we'll talk again with her in the evening. So looking forward to that as well. So thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk soon. And for those of you who are looking for these links, please reach out through wherever it is that you're in. Unless you're on my Facebook page or on YouTube, then you have those click links that are always so much more effective. So I will chat with everybody later, and have a fabulous night. Bye for now.